1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far, and welcome to today's video, which is going to be the next episode of Makeup Dilemmas. This is where I try my best to help you guys with your makeup struggles, your issues, your challenges. I try my best to answer as many as possible. If you want to submit a question for the next episode of Makeup Dilemmas, you need to be following me over on Instagram, and I intermittently ask on my stories, does anyone have a problem or a dilemma that they would like me to answer in a future video? That's how you get involved. So without further ado, let's get started. Such amazing questions or dilemmas this month, I have to say. Thank you so much to everybody who sent one in, because again, it's one of those videos where every time I do one of these and I do a call out saying, you know, do you have any makeup dilemmas? I think, oh, we're going to get the same ones. We're going to get, you know, very repetitive ones, because we've done a good few of these now. And every time there are some such great ones. So kicking us off, it's Tanya Pogo who says, how do you understand when you've put enough of the product, often going too much? Such a great question. The thing is about the amount of product, there's a lot of variables here. One, the product that you're using, obviously you're going to use a different amount when it comes to foundation that you would blush, but also the individual products. For example, you know, if you're using like the Rare Beauty liquid blushes, a teeny little dot of that is going to be the same, you know, as a lot of basically any other blush, because that product has a lot of pigmentation. So every time we use a makeup product, also depending on the effect we're going for, some people want a very natural blush, some people want pop-in cheeks. So there's a lot of variables. But for me, the best bit of advice is that it's far easier to add more than it is to take away when it comes to makeup. So always start off with a really small amount and just build until you get the effect that you want, because again, everybody wants a different effect. Everyone wants a different amount of pigmentation or coverage. So it's really personal preference, but I would just advise going steady, applying a little and adding more where you want it until you are happy with how much you've got. And that applies to like every item in makeup. There's really no hard and fast rule. It's just when you feel like that's how I want to look, that's how much of the product I want. I'm really happy with how my cheeks look. I'm really happy with the coverage of that product. That's it. But definitely start off small. Anything that comes with a pump, I will say, I feel like that's a clue. That's a hint that this is, whatever comes out in one pump is the amount that a brand is suggesting that you use. So when it comes to a foundation or a primer or, you know, anything that pumps, one pump is usually like what they're suggesting is the amount that you need. But yeah, really it's personal preference, but start light and build up as much as you want or as little as you want from there. You can always add more if it's still not what you're looking for, but tricky to take away. Next up, Aaliyah Joe says, luminous blush or a matte blush and highlighter, which pulls more natural? It really depends on the effect that you want to go for. For me, if you use a matte blush and then a highlighter, what you have is a more precise application of highlighter, because presumably you're not applying highlighter over your entire cheek area as you would be with like a very glowy blush. If you apply highlighter strategically, you're going to get that highlighted, you know, when you turn your cheek, that real sort of precise top of your cheekbone glow. Whereas if you use a glowy blush, a luminous blush, your entire cheek area is going to be glowy. So instead of just looking like, you know, you've got a highlighter and the real tops of your cheekbones or wherever you apply it are highlighted, you're getting an almost all over glowy effect when you use a luminous blush. So it really depends which one pulls more natural. Probably the matte blush, because not everybody has super glowy cheeks, but then if you have an oilier skin tone, all over glow is more natural in the literal sense of the word. So, you know, I would do either or, whatever I feel like on any given day. I would do a glowy blush and highlighter. That's how I roll. Just the more glow, the better. You know, life is too short not to glow in this house. So, Yale Meow. Is that even in the ballpark of correct? Every foundation, even the light coverage / tinted ones, is sinking into my fine lines. What should I do? a few questions for you. One, are you using a primer? Something like the Tom Ford Soft Matte Primer, very good at giving you a flawless, smooth canvas to apply product on top of, will help stop the foundation just creeping in there where you don't want it, where it is not welcome. Use a smaller amount of product. The more product you have, the more product there is to like just be up in those lines, you know? So less is more, especially as we age with like, well, with most things, but especially with complexion products, because the heavier and the more there is, the more you're going to overwhelm and exaggerate lines and wrinkles. But I would also say, maybe if you've tried that, maybe if you've tried a really great primer, a really good foundation, and not using too much, not going too heavy, and really going over it with a sponge, because it's excess that's kind of gathering in your lines. So go over everything with a sponge and try and get rid of that excess. And then I would try a setting powder if you're not already doing that, and really heavily set those areas where this is a problem. Say whether it's your smile lines or your forehead lines, set those areas, set and don't regret. M Floors 3004 says, how would you apply mineral SPF with makeup? Always so dry looking. SPF in general is such an issue when it comes to makeup. It's such a pain in the butt, you know? I'm assuming from this, because obviously there are mineral and chemical SPFs, but I get the hint. Are you talking about like a powder SPF that you sort of reapply over the top of your makeup? That's not something I use. I also had another question from somebody, I don't know if I can find it now. Yes, from Self Claire, asking, when reapplying sunscreen over makeup, do you suggest a spray sunscreen or liquid? So here's the thing, I don't do that. I never apply SPF over makeup. I just have never found it to work very well. I get asked a lot, how do you reapply SPF with makeup? I don't do that. Not to say I don't reapply SPF. Hold your horses. Wait, hear me out. In winter, it's not a huge issue here because we, don't have a super strong UV index in the UK. During the winter months, I'm not outside a huge amount of the time. I'm mostly indoors. So, yes, I do typically wear SPF in some kind of way most of the time, but it's not a huge concern reapplying all the time in the winter here, especially if I'm indoors the majority of the time. But in summer, my thing is, I just feel like if I'm going to be outside and I'm going to want to reapply SPF and have a really heavy amount of SPF on, I just don't wear makeup. What I tend to do is use something that's more of a sort of priming, perfecting product, and I just use that. So a couple of examples are my Charlotte Tilbury SPF. I love that one. It's a primer, but it has a high SPF in it, so I'll just pop that in my handbag, and that gives me a little bit of color correction, a little bit of evening skin tone, a beautiful glow, and a decent whack of SPF. I'll pop that in my handbag and reapply whenever I need, and then maybe do some mascara, brows, and like a tinted lip balm. Or the Trinny London BFF cream, which I think has SPF 30. So again, both of those products, Trinny has a slight bit of coverage, but again, it's still very, very subtle, very lightweight, very sheer, but it's just going to give you a bit of help with your skin, but you can reapply it without having to worry about you're messing up other products. So I will just go with something like that. Bit of brows, bit of mascara, could do a bit of a cream shadow and a bit of tinted lip balm, and then it's no worry about reapplying. I feel like any of these reapplying over the top of makeup products, actually it just doesn't really work in reality. They're just not that practical. I think the sprays are just never going to give you enough SPF. I said this in my Will I Buy It about the Pixi SPF mist. It's just how much is actually going on your skin and on your face, and how much SPF are you actually really getting. I just don't think you're getting enough. So that's my tactic, that's my method. I don't ever try to reapply or apply SPF over the top of a full face of makeup. It's just, I don't see it working. So Dora Christiana says, my makeup dilemma is getting started on a channel I created 9 years ago. I value you. Thank you so much. She also says, may I please show filming equipment, editing, any advice? So I actually have a whole playlist on like YouTube help. YouTube Q&A I think I have, and I have just a lot of tips on getting started on YouTube. But you know, 9 years is a very long time to have not started. So I would just say the best advice, you know, you can give advice all day long about starting a YouTube channel, practical advice, technological advice. But really, the only advice is to just start. No one is going to come along and film your first video for you. No one is going to be able to do that for you. You just have to sit down with whatever equipment you have or what you want to spend. Don't spend a fortune on it, because who knows, you might hate it. You might realize it's just not for you. You just aren't great at it. You just don't enjoy it, whatever, and you don't want to fork out a huge amount of equipment. I have upgraded all of my equipment. I did it again recently, like 3 or 4 times, but I started off with like just the camera I already owned, and I think I bought, you know, a £60 ring light, and then I just went with that. And it's, you know, as I've grown and as I've developed, I've improved things as I go and invested back into my channel from the money that I make here. So that's what I would say. Don't fork out a huge amount of equipment money straight away before you know that it's something that's going to be long term for you, that you're really going to enjoy and it's going to be worth it. But you just have to start. Just sit down and film your first video. It will probably, if it's anything like mine, be awful. You might not even upload it, or if you do upload it, you might just keep it private because it was a disaster and you kept looking at the monitor instead of at the lens, and you were stuttering and you didn't really know what you were doing, and it was awful. But you will learn a lot from that first video, and the only way, honestly, to start is to start, whatever that looks like. One of my videos when I first started got like 3 views. Okay, no one is going to watch those first few videos unless you're very, very lucky or unlucky, as it would have been for me. Thank goodness no one watched those first few, because they were awful, but I learned a huge amount from them. So if you want to start, you've got to start. Every day you wait is a day too late. I mean, in all aspects of life, not just YouTube. Nadia says, how to clean the eyeshadow fallout if your makeup is already done. I love watching you. Thank you so much, Nadia. Well, I mean, the best cure here is prevention. You know that. You know it's probably better and safer and easier if you do your eyes first. Presumably, that's what I would always recommend, because it's just way easier then. It is going to be harder, and it's probably not going to be perfect if you do it, you know, you've done your whole full face of makeup and then you get a load of eyeshadow fallout. It's going to be really tricky to completely remove it with no issues and it not making it worse. There are a few things to try, however. I would get a really fluffy light brush and try and dust away. Sometimes that's just going to smear it and you'll have a very metallic under eye for the rest of the day. Another trick I've seen is getting some tape, some sellotape, sticking it to the back of your hand, taking it off, stick it, take it off, stick it until it's barely sticky, and then very lightly tap it over the top to try and pick up the specks. All different types. Sometimes that's happened to me and I've just gone over with my beauty blender that's got a bit of concealer left on it and just tapped over the top to almost sort of cover it. A few different things to try, but for goodness sake, just do your eyes first. I beg you. Sorry I yelled. It comes from love. Snow is Fab says, good quality makeup brushes don't seem to make a big difference. We are not the same. Let me tell you, when I discovered good quality makeup brushes, they basically do my makeup for me now. I just sit here and go with the flow. They make a huge difference to me, but if they don't make any difference to you, then don't buy them. Save your money, honey, you know, because if you don't see the difference, stop trying to force it and just go with your more affordable ones and think yourself very lucky, because you can save yourself a lot of money. You know, if something really expensive is not working for you and you feel like there's something wrong because everyone else says it's amazing and it makes this huge difference, forget them, okay? Just think yourself very lucky. You can save a lot of bucks on makeup brushes if you just don't get the more expensive ones and they don't seem to be worth it to you. Jane J176 says, I can't find a good brown liquid eyeliner. I've tried Charlotte Tilbury, but it was really dry. So the one that I have really liked is the Benefit Extreme Precision Liner. This comes in a brown shade. It is brown, but it's not like a really light brown. It's the perfect brown, like a sort of chocolatey brown. It's much softer than black, but it's really much more natural and less harsh. I found I really like it. I haven't had any issues. It's wonderful. recommend. Darlow Smurf says, I am 63 and my skin is okay for my age. You look fabulous. What are you talking about? Okay. But I have saddlebags under my eyes. How can I disguise them? Here's the thing. Makeup, it does have limitations. And I do think we shouldn't be telling people, oh, this concealer is going to cover your eye bags, or this is going to cover your lines or disguise, you know, signs of aging, because as we age, those lines and wrinkles, we worked hard for those, okay? Those are a display of our challenges, of our wins, and we shouldn't really feel like we have to hide our aging. That's number one. Second of all, like the only way to kind of really improve something like really extreme bags under your eyes is going to be surgery. You could probably make some improvements with some skincare, but like realistically, makeup is not going to hide them. The thing that might improve is using a very lifting eye cream before makeup. It's not going to be a permanent solution, but there are lots of great, Kate Somerville, for example. I watched a video from Caroline Hirons and she had some excellent recommendations and things about eye creams, and Kate Somerville is like the creme de la creme for like a sort of, you know, an instant gratification result from an eye cream. So that might give you some help, but you know, and again, a full coverage concealer is going to give you some coverage under there, but they aren't going to be invisible. You aren't going to like miraculously get rid of them. I would look for a smoothing powder, something like the Pat McGrath powder as well, and it's all going to help, but they aren't going to be invisible, and nor should they be, and nor should you feel self-conscious of that, because you look fabulous, you look beautiful, you look very glamorous, and signs of aging on our face, our bodies, our hair are nothing to feel like we should have to hide or feel like there's some shame in it. Like, you earned those saddlebags. Okay, carry them proudly. Mrs. Karen Hunt says, do you have any problem with makeup not sticking to your nose? I don't have that problem, but I have seen it be like a pretty common problem. It might be the case that you would benefit from a primer on the, like a nasal specific primer, if you will. Something like the MAC Pore Refining primer. I used that for a long while because my nose can get a little shiny down the sides, but it's a very sort of like smoothing and like oil stopping primer, which may be the issue. It may be that your makeup is like mixing with the oil on your nose. If you have an oilier skin type or just an oily schnoz like I do, then it might be that like the foundation is saying, no, I'm not going there because there's already oil. So try something like that, a very sort of oil retaining primer and skincare, and see if that helps. Any other tips? You know what to do. Comment section, do your thing. Lauren X Des says, putting liquid or cream, I beg your pardon, cheek products, blush or bronzer, followed by their powder form. Is it too much makeup? I mean, who's to say what is too much makeup and what is not? Too much makeup is only a thing for other people. You do as much makeup as you want. Nobody can tell you whether it's too much. If it's too much for you, do less. If it's not enough, do more, okay? We only are pleasing ourselves here. Whatever we want to do, as much or as little as you like. A lot of people set their cream products with a powder, but I feel like if you have to set a cream product with a powder, just use a powder. What's the point of that? You know, that's my feeling. I don't really want to have to faff around with doing both, to be honest, but, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. No one's counting, okay? No one's going to come up to you and be like, wait there a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've used 15 products today. It's too much. No one's going to know how many products you used. So if that's what you like to do, if you like to set your cream products with their powder friends, do whatever you like, okay? And if someone says anything about it, then send them to me. Victoriawell says, what do I think about the new the new trend to shave one's face so makeup looks better? Here's the thing about that. I can't be bothered, okay? I shave my moustache very intermittently. I've recently realised I've got to do it more often now that I'm in like 4K. It's very exposing. Okay, sometimes my moustache is just out there and I really don't care that much. I'll do it whenever I feel like it's like I'm competing with my husband and I am winning, then I'll get the razor out and do a bit of a dermaplane of the tash. But I really can't be bothered to get on board with the whole face. I undoubtedly am sure, I'm absolutely sure it will help your makeup apply smoother, because I sometimes notice, you know, I've got a lot of peach fuzz. I've never ever shaved my face. So I do have a lot of peach fuzz like in this area, and sometimes, you know, if you're applying certain foundations can make it look heavier or exaggerate it and it just like clings to your beard. And I sometimes think then, I'm sure if I shaved my face, this would look better. Whether it's worth like the effort and the commitment to like do that forever, for me, absolutely not. I cannot be bothered to start doing another thing all the time. I am 100% sure it would give you a smoother, more flawless canvas for makeup, and of course it would be, you know, you'd have a nice cleanly shaven, smooth, buttery face. But yeah, whether or not you can be bothered to commit to that is, you know, congratulations, because you have way more energy than me. Okay, so next up, Sunshine Star Liz says how to use retinol in a skincare routine. What goes when if you're using a retinol? So first thing is, retinol should only be used at nighttime. Don't use it in the daytime because it's going to make your skin very sensitive to UV rays and the sun. So only use it at nighttime. Basically, retinol, depending on how many steps and exactly the different products you use in your nighttime routine, the easiest way to remember it is it goes after your thin products and before your heavy products. So anything like cleanser, obviously cleansers first. If you use a toner or an essence, that goes next. Then serums. Once all of that has absorbed, you then go in with retinol, and then you follow with any moisturizer, any heavy cream, and any oils afterwards. If you're not using serums, or if you're not using an oil, you're just using, you know, your cleanser, and you don't do serum, then you'd go cleanser, retinol, moisturizer. Basically, you don't want it to be after your heavy creams or your moisturizers because it's not going to be able to penetrate through. And serums are good to do before retinol because typically the retinol is going to be heavier than your serums. So in order for your products not to sort of block each other, light products, serums, toners before, heavier products, creams, oils after. Fizzler says, how can I help my lipstick last more than 5 minutes? I have to wear a mask at work. I mean, why is it lasting so little time is my first question. Second of all, I think in order for like a lipstick to last like a shift, especially if you're wearing a mask, it's going to have to be a matte lipstick. I would probably go for a liquid matte. As drying as they are, if your number one priority is like longevity, you really can't beat them. I would suggest either, actually the Dior bullets, that transfer proof bullets, are excellent. They won't transfer all over your mask and they're very long wearing and they're not quite as drying as like a liquid lipstick. So those would be my recommendation, to give those a try because they are very, very nice, beautiful and really long wearing. Elio says, no matter what I use to fill in my brows, it ends up patchy by mid-afternoon. What I will say, I don't do this, but I have seen lots of people who actually set their brows with translucent powder. So something like, you know, a very mattifying, loose translucent powder on a brush and literally tap it all over your brows, like almost like you're baking your brows and then dusting any excess away. I've seen a lot of people with oilier skin types doing that very effectively. So maybe give that a try. Again, another one for the comment section, because this is not something that happens to me. So if you have any tips, if you have this challenge, you know what to do. Robertson 1592 says, I have dark spots. How can I cover them and not look like I'm wearing tons of makeup? So you can do a lot to improve dark spots. That's the first thing. One, SPF is like an absolute must, because dark spots are essentially caused by like sun damage, or they can be because dark spots are essentially hyperpigmentation. So one, you can do a lot to improve that with skincare. Definitely look into skincare ingredients and products that specifically target hyperpigmentation, because they can really be massively improved quite easily with the right products and the right treatments. But also make sure that you are really going ham on your SPF, especially in those areas, because otherwise they will get worse or they will just come back. So prevention is better than cure. As far as covering them, in the meantime, I would absolutely recommend trying a color corrector. So depending on the color of your hyperpigmentation and also your skin tone, that will be different, but have a look into color correctors and work out the right color corrector for the color of your skin tone and also the pigmentation, and try that. Really light, tiny amount will really help you reduce the amount of coverage that you need for them to be covered. You won't need to use, just don't rely on just a really heavy concealer or a really heavy foundation. Try using a small amount of a color corrector on them and then a light amount of foundation and see how you get on. But yes, get to know your color wheel, because that is a really big game changer for color correcting certain things like hyperpigmentation, shadow, or just discoloration in general on your skin can be massively improved with a color corrector, as opposed to just trying to completely cover it up with like a heavy layer or foundation or concealer. Makeup Box Diary says palette recommendations with a navy. I feel like there are no neutral palettes with a pop of a navy matte. You know, I had a look through my palettes this morning, and literally the only one that I really came across that had like the perfect navy shade was my amazing £5 from Natasha Denona that was discontinued. So perhaps we're missing a navy shaped hole in our hearts and in our lives. Please let me know if you have or you know of a navy eyeshadow palette or a palette that has a pop of a navy colour in there, because that was the only one that I could find. It's not really something I have a lot of in my collection. I'm not really a blue girl other than that one phenomenal palette from Natasha Denona. But yeah, if you know of a palette that has a stunning navy matte in it, please let us know, because the only one I can think of is discontinued, which continues to ruin everybody's days, especially mine. Claire asks, what have you found to be the best SPF and when does it go on, i.e. before or instead of primer? So the best SPFs for me, I love the Shiseido ones. I love La Roche-Posay. Charlotte Tilbury, I love to wear her priming SPF on its own. Those are like my absolute favorite ones. What I will say is, like, SPF, think of it as the end of skincare as opposed to the beginning of makeup. So you want it to go the very last step of skincare, because it's going to act as like a barrier. So you don't want to like put it on before moisturizer, because then your moisturizer isn't going to get into your skin. So I always go SPF and then leave as long of a gap as possible before primer. I think of primer as makeup, SPF as like the end of skincare, the final step of skincare. And finally, Sarah J. Cross says, do you have a luxury dupe for Benefit Professional, please? I love the product, I hate the packaging. Do you know what? It's been so many years since I used Benefit Professional. I was never a big fan of it, but I did have it back in the day. From my memory, it's a very silicone-y, sort of mattifying, smoothing primer. Am I correct? So I would always recommend the Tom Ford Soft Matte Primer. It's amazing. It's definitely not as sort of heavily silicone-y as the Benefit one, but then I would say that that is a good thing. It's definitely a bit more of a sort of gel consistency. It's not as heavy. It's way better, in my opinion, but it does give you the sort of mattifying, smoothing, pore filling, pore refining finish or quality or effect that the Benefit one does, but it's just way better. So I would say this one. Okay, and I think that is all we have time for today in our makeup dilemmas. I tried to answer, I pretty much think I answered every question that was a new question that we haven't had before. So I hope that everybody feels like this was useful and we answered a lot of questions. Please keep your answers coming in the comment section down below, especially those couple of questions that I'm not an expert in. If you have any advice, tips and tricks, you guys are so great at helping me out in these videos and adding to your experiences in the comment section down below, so I'm sure there will be some amazing advice in the comment section as well. Thank you so much again for everybody sending your questions in. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye.